Hi everyone, welcome to today's episode of our podcast where we talk all things early childhood. I'm your host Jenna. Whether you are a student, an educator, or just curious about how children are viewed in education, this episode is for you. Today's topic is the image of the child, a powerful idea that affects everything we do as early childhood professional. I'll be sharing my reflections, some of my old childhood stories, and discussing how theory shaped the way I see children today. And I'm not alone today. I'm here with my friend Kil. Hi, Kil.
Hi, Jenna. Thanks for having me today. I'm really excited about this topic, really. It's something we don't always stop to think about, but it's really defines our how teaching.
Exactly, Kil. So let's start with the basics. When we say image of the child, what do we actually mean?
That's actually a great question. The image of the child revert to how we perceive the children, whether we see them as capable, dependent, creative, disruptive, or even passive. There's a few impact how we teach the environment we create and the expectation we set.
Absolutely. And for me, the image is the central to everything I do. I see children as curious, competent, and full of potential. They are not passive recipients of knowledge, but they are active participants in their own learning.
Exactly. And that belief changes everything. When we see children as capable, we tend to give them more choices, value their choices, and design learning environment that respond to their interests. But however, if we see them as fragile or needing constant control, our teaching might become overwhelming structure or limiting.
That's so true. The image we hold in our mind directly impacts whether we are empowering children or holding them back. That's why the EYLF highlights the importance of viewing children as competent, capable, and active participants in their learning. So let's take a step back and look at how children were viewed in the past. Kill, what do you think was some of the dominant historical view of childhood?
That's really a nice question. Well, for a long time, children weren't seen as the way we see them today. Historically, they were often viewed through a deficit lens, basically as incomplete or immature adults. A good example is John Locke's concept of the tabula rasa or blank slate. He believed children were born without knowledge or character and that adults need to shape them. This view heavily influenced education system where children were expected to sit quietly, copy from the board and follow instruction without much more room for creativity or choice.
Exactly, there was a little recognition of children's voice, agency, or natural abilities, but then come to Rousseau in the 18th century, who really changed that thinking. He viewed children as inherently good and naturally curious. His idea was that children learn best when they are free to explore, not when they are being controlled.
Rizzo definitely flipped the script. He believed in learning through experience and that children needed space to grow without constant adult interference. It was a big shift toward child centered thinking.
Yes, and I do agree with some parts of Rousseau's philosophies, especially his belief in children's inner potential, but I also see the need for the balance. Too much freedom without guidance can sometimes lead to missed opportunity for learning. I remember observing two children, one who was trying to build a tall tower with blocks. They keep stacking the blocks randomly, and then the tower keep falling over. Eventually, they got frustrated and gave up. But when I gently suggest, what if we start with the bigger blocks at the bottom? They try again, and this time the tower stood tall. I could see how proud they were. That experience really taught me that a little bit of guidance at the right moment can make a huge difference.
Wow, that's such a perfect example. And it really connects with a Vygotsky theory. His concept of the zone of proximal development shows that learning happens most effectively when adults provide the right level of support. Not much, not little, just enough to extend the child's thinking and skills.
Exactly. It's not about doing everything for them, but knowing when to step in and scaffold their learning. It's a much more respectful way of supporting children.
So, Jenna, I'd love to hear about how your own childhood has shaped your current image of the child.
That's such a great question, Kill. When I reflect on my childhood in Vietnam, I realize how deeply it has influenced my image of the child. I have such a vivid memories of playing outside with my cousin, using stones, leaves, and water to pretend we was cooking or building our houses. There were no instructions, just our imagination leading the way. That play taught me about problem solving, teamwork, and communication, even though we didn't call it learning at that time.
That sounds beautiful. For me, I had a lot of energy and curiosity as a child, but it wasn't always understood. I remember being called like naughty just because I asked too many questions or couldn't sit still. That label followed me, even though I wasn't misbehaving and I was just eager to understand the world around me.
I can definitely relate. I was quite sensitive as a child, and I still remember being taught things like don't make a mess or be quiet, the others are talking. At that time, I didn't realize how much those small comments were affecting me. I started to hold back, afraid to speak up or take risks, even when I was curious or excited. It's only now, as an educator, that I can see those words' impact on my confidence.
It's interesting how much like more little moments stay with us. And now that we've becoming educators, we carry that awareness into our practice. Now, when we see a child who's noisy or always moving, I try to pause and ask myself, what's really going on with her? What are they trying to tell me through their behavior? That mindset shift is so important.
Exactly. My experience have taught me to be very intentional with how I speak to children. I want every children to feel like they belong, that they are heard, and that it's okay to express themselves, whether that means being curious, loud, shy, or messy. Though behavior aren't the problems, they are part of the child's unique personality and way of learning.
And also, when we respond with the empathy and understanding, we're not just managing behavior, we're nurturing identity and self worth. That's where real learning begins in relationship based on trust and respect.
Yes, that's why now I view children as capable, creative, and full of potential. This really aligns with the Reggio Emilia philosophies, which describe children as rich in ideas and able to express themselves in 100 languages, like through arts, movements, buildings, storytellings, and more. So let me share a quick example. During one of my placements, I noticed a child collecting sticks, leaves, and rocks in the garden. I asked her what she was doing, and she replied, I'm building a house for ants so they don't get wet when it rains. That moment was so powerful. It wasn't just play, it was science, empathy, engineering, and imagination all in once. And it came entirely from her own thinking.
That's incredible. You could have easily told her to stop or clean up, but instead, you listen, and by doing that, you honor her idea and extend her learning.
Exactly. It reminds me that when we take time to observe and truly listen, we see just how thoughtful, capable, and insightful children really are. They are not waiting to learn, they are learning all the time. Now, let's talk about how our image of the child actually influences what we do in practice. For me, it always begins with the environment. As Scotland explains, a space that supports agencies is one where children can move freely, access open-ended materials, and explore without unnecessary interruption.
That makes a lot of sense. When we see children as capable, the learning environment become more of workshop than a classroom. In my last placement, I set up an area with the large blocks, pipes, and loose parts. Instead of telling children what to build, I simply observe. One children created a boat while another designed a robot. They follow their own path and learn so much in the process.
Exactly.
And I also think time is essential. When we rush children through routines or always pull them away for a group time, we cut off their deep engagement. I remember one child who was working on designing a rocket from a paper tubs. Instead of calling him to join math time, I sat beside him and asked, "Where is your rocket going?" That simple moment turned into a story rich, imaginative discussion.
Yes, giving them so respect.
Another things I've learned is that when we respect children's culture, we help them feel like they belong. Brown Fair Berners' ecological system theory really reminds us that children aren't just individuals, they're part of families, communities, and cultures.
Absolutely. I always try to reflect children's background in the curriculum. For example, during a Mid-Autumn Festival, I introduced a Vietnamese song, Chiếc đèn ông sao. This song is talking about Mid-Autumn Festival. One of the children immediately lit up and said, "My grandma sing that to me." It's become a beautiful moment of connection and sparked conversation with the whole group.
That's such a powerful example. I recently invited families to share a photo from home, and one child brought a picture of her traditional dance costume. We created a display, and the children asked so many questions. Suddenly, culture became something we were celebrating together, not just learning about from distance.
Yes, when children see their home lives reflected in the classroom, they feel valued. It's not just about inclusion, it's about identity. Every time we honor a child's language, traditional or story, we send in a message, you belong here.
And that belonging builds confidence. When children feel seen, they're more willing to take a risk, express idea, and connect with others. That kinds of learning that lasts.
Yes, I totally agree. So let's wrap up today's episode. We return to that central question. What is your image of the child? Well, we agree it's not just a theory, it's a lens. It influences how we listen, how we guide, how we plan, and even how we interpret children's behavior.
Exactly. And that lens need to be checked and rechecked. It's not fixed. As we gain experience and work with diverse children, our assumptions shift. We begin asking deeper questions like, is this child being difficult? Or are they expressing a need in the only way when they know how? That kind of reflection keep our practice intentionally and empathic.
Yes, for me, when I see a child making up a song while stacking blocks or crafting a whole world with leaves and cardboard, I don't just replay. I see rich, complex learning. I see creativity, persistency, problem solving, and more than anything, I see a child with a voice that deserves to be heard.
Wow, beautifully said, Jenna. If we as educators slow down and truly see children's, not just manage or correct them, we can become co-learners alongside with them. That's when the magic happens. That's when pedagogy becomes relationship.
Yes, I'm totally agree. Thank you, Kil, for today, and thank you to all of you for listening. I hope this episode has sparked some reflection about how we see, support, and respect children in our care. Until next time, keep observing, keep listening, and most importantly, keep believing in the brilliance of every child. So, see you in the next episode. Bye for now.
Bye everyone.
Bye.